Well, welcome back to our series of roundtable discussions on the casino mitigation agreement and all things casino related to the city of Revere. And with me in this session, we have Mayor Dan Rizzo once again, and sitting next to Mayor Dan Rizzo is C.O.O. Chip Tuttle from Suffolk Downs. Chip, welcome.
Thanks, Ed. It's great to be back at Revere TV.
Great. Well, it's good to have you back. Part of what we wanted to start off talking about is the jobs issue. Again, one of the benefits that will come about as a result of this casino, if it's approved by the voters in the city, are the jobs. And let's just talk about construction jobs to start off with.
So the project, the scope of the project is it's $1 billion investment, right? And 2 hotels, a massive renovation and refurbishment of the existing grandstand and clubhouse at Suffolk, construction of a parking garage, construction of all new gaming space and things like that. So it's a big project, about a little more than 2-year construction cycle. And we think there'll be 2,500 construction jobs during that phase. Clearly, 10% of that for Revere residents, and that's just a benchmark. I mean, it can be more than that, and those are very good jobs, high intensity in the building trades, and this economy since 2008 has slowed down quite a bit in 2009 and 10 and 11. It started to pick up a little, but there's still a lot of need for employment in that sector of the economy, and it's one of the things that we're looking forward to if we're successful in earning a license.
And I know you've recently held a job fair, I believe, at Suffolk Downs, or about to if it hasn't happened already. And some of that is maybe related to jobs within the casino itself once it opens, but does it also relate to construction jobs, or how do people apply, if I'm interested in construction?
Yeah, so we didn't really have a job fair per se where we were taking resumes, and because a couple of things. It's a little too early in the process for that, and we don't want to appear presumptuous. We're going to have to earn this license, and we're going to have to earn it on the merits of our proposal. But we did want to have an informational forum on careers and on some days people say to me, geez, these jobs aren't as good as jobs as we'd like. We'd like them to be better. And on other days they say, geez, we're afraid that people from Worcester are going to come and take these jobs. And it can't be, it's got to be one or the other. And I think the big reason we had that career forum was to tell people about the hiring process, the job opportunity, the time frame, and also how people approach careers in the gaming industry, what the benefits package is like with our partner at Caesars Entertainment. They are the leader in the gaming industry in employment practices. They sort of have best practices in a number of different areas, but their commitment to their employees is bar none in the gaming industry. So we talked to a lot of people about those opportunities. In terms of the construction cycle, if we earn a license and that license is awarded in April, we're going to be gearing up very, very quickly, and there'll be local opportunities that we'll be advertising and recruiting for locally in Revere and East Boston before we go other places.
Dan, do you have it?
No, I guess the only thing that I would add to that is, some people have talked about the number of jobs that will go to Revere residents, and that's built into the host community agreement that 10% of construction jobs, 10% of permanent jobs will go to Revere residents. Now, that's not limited to 10%. That's not to say that once we hit that 10% threshold, nobody else can get a job after that. I mean, we're looking at these as minimums, and as laid out in the host community agreement, it's always the caveat that comes with that is best efforts, because there's got to be, obviously, with every position, there's got to be qualified people to fill those. So, but there's no doubt, in fact, when this expanded gaming came to be and was passed back in November of 2011, it came out really not as a casino bill, but as an emergency jobs bill. So the employment factor that centers around this proposal and this development is, it just can't be overemphasized.
And speaking of jobs, and there's another segment here in the host community agreement, and it has to do with local purchasing arrangements with Revere businesses and so forth. And of course, the more business that occurs for Revere businesses, the more job opportunities that exist for residents of Revere, hopefully. You want to talk a little bit about that arrangement?
Sure. That was a commitment we were happy to make. Our discussions with the mayor and his staff in discussing the host community agreement and negotiating it, some of these things were easier to agree to than others. And $7.5 million a year in annual spending for Revere businesses is a target that we feel like we can get to. A facility of this size, at full build, at full operation, will source about $150 million a year in goods and services. So our challenge is how much of that can we do locally? Now, clearly, it's impossible for us to buy everything from Boston and Revere-based businesses. But spending that type of money in the local community, employing 400 to 500, 600 Revere residents, right? And you remember at the track right now, and things haven't been great, but we've got 51 employees from Revere. Revere is actually the highest, the top community for our employees. And we think that can continue, and our commitment to Revere businesses is similar. We should be able to source things from Revere businesses, and these numbers are targets, but doesn't mean we can't exceed them. But if we're spending money with Revere businesses, that's additional jobs, it's additional economic activity in the city, and we think there's going to be substantial spillover effect.
And going back to the money for Revere businesses, and if I understand it right, some of that is through, if you will, coupons, discounts that you're going to be passing out to patrons once the doors are open. That's one way. And then it's goods and services that you'll be procuring from Revere businesses.
Yeah, it's two major ways of spending that money in Revere. One is just contracting with Revere businesses on materials and services that the operation will need. So whether or not that's actual hard goods, whether or not it's services that need to occur on a regular basis, supplies, construction services, ongoing maintenance and construction and things all the time, right? There's that whole professional services. There's those categories, but Caesars has a program called Total Rewards. It's the most successful loyalty program in the gaming industry. They have 45 million members. And what we're doing is extending the Total Rewards programs to some Revere businesses so that we can have partnerships with hotels and restaurants in Revere where our guests, our patrons, can go and redeem their points at Revere restaurants. So if somebody wants to have dinner on Broadway and wants to go into one of the restaurants in Revere and redeem their points there, that's another way for us to help spend money in the local economy.
Great. I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, and that's the track itself. And how many people are employed by the track currently?
We have 350 people on our payroll at the track. That's Suffolk Downs and our concessions, security, cleaning, and television production companies on site. So at the height of the racing season, about 350 people. And there are another 500 or so people licensed by the state to work in the barn area, right? And those are the trainers and the grooms and the stable hands and the exercise riders and the jockeys and all of the independent contractors who make their living based on the economic activity at Suffolk Downs and the purses we pay, but they're not necessarily on our payroll. So there's a little fewer than 1,000 jobs at the facility now.
So we talk about additional jobs that the casino will likely bring along, but there is also the 1,000 or so jobs, or just less than 1,000 jobs, that are at risk if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, so one of the things that we've tried to get people to focus on a little bit as they go to the polls on November 5th and they think about their decision, do I support this development or not, is that gaming development at Suffolk Downs preserves the racetrack and it preserves racing. Part of the legislation, part of the law says if we're successful in earning a gaming license, we have to keep the racetrack. That was fine with us. That was our plan all along. So we were happy to include that when that provision was included in the statute. Some other type of development at Suffolk Downs doesn't keep the racetrack. And the track, unfortunately, hasn't been profitable since 2005 or 2006. I think it might have broken even in 2006. Has lost money every year. Our owners, Joe O'Donnell, Richard Fields, have been happy to invest in the racetrack and keep it going with the possibility that we may earn a gaming license. But it gets harder and harder for me to ask them to continue to do that as the losses pile up on the racing side. If we are not successful in earning a gaming license, I think we would have to look at some alternative development. And that development could be big box retail. It could be light industrial related to Logan Airport. It could be a mixed use. Housing is very, very attractive to people now on public transportation. We abut two Blue Line stations, the Suffolk Downs station and the Beachmont station. So we have to look at alternative development scenarios. Those scenarios don't come with a host community agreement. They don't come with a guarantee of jobs and local spending. So in some ways, the choice for people is not the status quo or gaming development. It's gaming development or some other development.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Dan, do you want anything to?
Well, just a couple things to follow up on a few things that Chip has talked about. First of all, the investment in local business, which, is, again, was very important to me and our administration, that, of that $150 or so million that Suffolk Downs will be spending on goods and services, that a chunk of that would be spent here in Revere. And as you know, and as we talked about before, we're very focused on commercial development, again, to take that burden off of our residential tax base and off of our residential taxpayers, and to have $7.5 million invested by one entity, I think makes it very attractive, not only for our existing business owners, but for any businesses that may look to locate here in the city of Revere, which obviously is something that we're always trying to do. The other thing I think is unique about their casino, unlike if you go to Atlantic City or Las Vegas, is that those casinos focus very much on keeping you inside the casino. They don't want you to leave. This proposal really encourage people to go outside and spend money in the local area, because their concern isn't just about, obviously they're concerned about being profitable, but they also want to be partners in building the communities in which they exist. So, I think that, makes this type of, development very, very favorable for not only Revere, but also for East Boston and really beyond.
I should point out, Ed, that the Everett host community agreement for the rival proposal in Everett, I think it guarantees $50,000 a year in spending with Everett businesses. And Mayor Rizzo and his team asked us to come up with $7.5 million. And it's a great comparison, I think, in terms of the job that the mayor's team did in trying to ensure that local businesses were protected.
That's good. Any other points there?
No, well, and just finally, as I was listening to Chip and talk about how they want to preserve the racetrack, and I know Richard's a big horseman himself. He loves it, and he has this vision, or maybe I'm imagining it. I have this vision of turning Suffolk Downs into a little mini Saratoga. If anyone's ever been to Saratoga, they're planting, 2,200 trees over there, and it's going to be, I think, the first green casino in the entire, not the country, but I think in the world. And to have that type of environment where people can go and enjoy the races and see that elevated type of racing, which you experience, again, if you've ever had the opportunity to go to Saratoga, it's a wonderful experience. So that's just going to be a great adjunct to the, the other normal traditional gaming, such as craps and blackjack and whatever else that they may have inside. So.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into the next segment, and we want to talk about the structure, the design, the development plans. Before we leave that, is there anything else on jobs that I haven't asked about, or any that's worth pointing out?
Well, I think, it's part of our agreement with Revere that if and when we get to the hiring stage, that we start here, that we start advertising here, we start recruiting here, we start helping people with the readiness and training programs so that they can be responsive, and that, that we hire locally first before we start looking in the broader community, that we start in Revere and East Boston and then move out from there.
And I'll also add one more point, that within the confines of the host community agreement, Suffolk Downs or Suffolk Caesars will have an employee that they have that will do outreach for jobs that come available, at the facility. So their job will be to let Revere residents know when these openings occur. So, really, I think that we're really stepping off into this really on the right foot with respect to taking care of our community, and with Suffolk Downs, as they have been for close to 80 years, continuing that tradition of being a great neighbor. They've operated here in the city, for 78 years now, and this, I think, will, solidify their position in our community for probably generations. So, a very exciting time for our city.
So, thank you. And moving on to the next section, want to talk a little bit about the structure, the design. I mean, we've all seen the photographs, the posters, and so forth. But you want to talk a little bit about just kind of review with everybody, update everybody as to what it is.
Thanks, Ed. That's very exciting stuff for us. As we've talked about, and the mayor talked about enhancing and improving the racing program. I mean, it's really a transformative project. Not just for the property, but for the community as a whole. Ed, this is one of the things that's really fun for us to talk about when we think about investing $1 billion to turn our 78-year-old racetrack into a world-class destination resort with all of the amenities that people expect at a place like Foxwoods or Mohegan Sun or when they go to Las Vegas. This rendering, the first one that we looked at is our main entrance off Route 1A reimagined with landscaping and signage. I think Celine Dion was playing a show on that, and that's the type of entertainment we hope to attract. You can see in the image shown here the main Caesars Hotel. And Caesars, as a company, manages 53 of these facilities around the world. They have a huge portfolio of brands. They have the Horseshoe Casino brand, Planet Hollywood, Rio, Harrah's, a whole bunch of them. The very, very top tier, the very top echelon of their brand portfolio is Caesars. And we said, for this location, that's what we want. We want the highest end, most luxurious facility that we can build. So this is that was the Caesars Hotel that would be the centerpiece of the property. From this view, which is really from the top of Orient Heights, you see the Caesars Hotel in the foreground, the second hotel standing up there in the middle, 150-room boutique hotel. There's gaming space between those two. There's a 24,000 square foot multi-use entertainment space on the second floor there. You can see the sweeping views out across the track and Revere Beach and up towards the North Shore. Part of building hotels is to make sure that people get a connection to Revere Beach and can see out into the ocean when you get up over the 3 stories that is the current clubhouse and grandstand. You can do that. This is a view from the Suffolk Downs MBTA station from the T-stop facing back towards the facility. You can see both hotels. You can see the racetrack. Part of this plan is to take about 1/3 of the racing space in the clubhouse and the grandstand and keep that for racing and simulcasting, and take 2/3 of it and turn it into gaming and restaurants. The whole plan calls for 16 restaurants. All of the restaurants open outside. They're almost all on the exterior of the property, so people can come. They can enjoy a restaurant, enjoy a meal. They can walk around. They don't have to set foot in the gaming space if they don't want to. This view shows that second hotel there in the background, and the grandstand of the racetrack completely redone with a porte cochere. And on the right, you see a little slice of the parking structure there. And then that big football field-sized area right there, we call the North Plaza. And that's basically an open space for public use. That's a big garden where we can have events, we could have weddings, you could tent it and do entertainment out there. There's a lot of flexible space throughout the project. Another view of the track with a lot more people than are currently hanging around the track other than a couple of days a year. And this is part of what Mayor Rizzo talked about of trying to enhance racing and bring some of the top stables that have left through the years, as other states have had the advantage of gaming at the racetrack and we haven't, right? So it's made it harder and harder for us to compete with neighboring states. We haven't publicly released our interior program yet, but we have started to share with our neighbors in Revere and East Boston some views of the interior. This one, a view of the hotel lobby, gives your viewers a sense for how nice a facility we're talking about building. I mean, it's beautifully appointed, you know, the highest end experience. You can see this is another view from the lobby, but instead of looking down to the check-in desk, now you're looking through onto the gaming floor. And this is really a contemporary, urban, more modern Caesars than I think people who have visited Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, which is a spectacular facility. But I think our friends at Caesars look at this market as a way to take that Caesars brand and move it one step forward. The Flex Entertainment space here, it's a really bad name for what is a really gorgeous ballroom on the second floor of the facility. Again, you know, as nice as any facility in Boston, and this would be an area that we'd use for entertainment, for weddings, for events, for meetings, for things like that. And then I don't know how many more of these we have, but this is a view of the Winter Garden, which is the nexus of the property. It's really a connection space between the old construction and the new construction. And you can see that board on the left there is what we call the Gateway Center. And that's really a place to promote local businesses, to promote local attractions. So if there's something going on in the community, our visitors can go right there and find out what it is. You know, maybe there's something going on in Revere, maybe there's something going on in Boston, there's something going on the North Shore. They can go up to that and they can type in, you know, restaurant choices. They can ask, you know, where do I find this in the local community? And a list of attractions and local attractions will come up for them if they want to go and explore the area.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
Quite a few things in there. Go back to, and you've already hit upon it, you know, and one of the things that I thought was interesting about the casino and saving racing, but it's not only saving it, but it's improving the racing. You alluded to that a little bit. Address that a little bit more about how you're going to improve the quality of racing and what your plans are there.
Yeah, well, I think Revere residents have been familiar with the track for years and years, and you know, they saw what happened at Wonderland, and that was a result of you know, some action specifically on greyhound racing. But what has happened at Suffolk Downs is our horsemen go to Florida for the winter, the horsemen and horsewomen that take care of the horses. And when they decide where they're coming back in the spring, as they drive up Route 95 from Florida to Massachusetts, they have all these places they can go to instead of here. They can go to West Virginia, where the two tracks at West Virginia have casinos at the racetracks, and their purses are about $250,000, $275,000 a day, and our purses are about $105,000, $110,000 a day. And they can go to New York, they can go to Pennsylvania, they can go to Maryland, and it's become harder and harder for us to recruit the top stables. And we've seen some of the top stables from New England, with Rockingham Park closing and Suffolk being the last remaining thoroughbred track in New England. We've seen some of these top stables just go elsewhere. But they call me all the time. They say, we'd like to come back. You know, it's home. We'd like to, instead of, and there are folks here that instead of having 10 horses here, they'd like to have 25 or 30. And part of the whole program if we're able to earn this license, is to invest more into racing, invest into some of the racing facilities, to take our clubhouse and turn it into a state-of-the-art racing and simulcast center, to invest into the track itself, to the grounds, to the exterior, and to take the purses from where they are now to 2.5, 3 times where they are now, and that's done through some of the proceeds from the licensees, the gaming licensees around the state.
Going back to the racing and the jobs issue, and not only are we going to be saving close to 1,000 jobs, but is it not incorrect to be thinking that maybe we're going to add more jobs as a result of improved racing and focus there?
You may be able to do that. What we've seen happen in other parts of the country is that they not only stabilized the racing, they improved the racing, and they got additional agribusiness benefits, right? You know, that preservation of open space and more breeding farms in the state and things like that. Now, there are not any breeding farms that we know of in Revere, Mr. Mayor, but
No.
there is a spillover effect, and you know, the businesses along Winthrop Avenue that benefit from the racetrack employees and those people being there. You know, I think there's some additional economic benefits there as well.
All right. Dan, do you have any thoughts on what we've just seen on the screen there?
Oh no, I mean I've had I've been very fortunate in you know, having been shared with those images in the past, although the lobby views are all new to me. So I'm glad I got a chance to see that. And I would expect nothing less. I mean, you know, in working with, you know, Chip and his team, you know, that they have over there at Suffolk Downs and now Caesars, you know, they're pros. And, you know, this is, you know, as I say, this is going to be a very well done professional development. This is, you know, as I say, they're spending $1 billion there, so, you know, it's important to them that they get it right and that they do a good job. So I have no doubt that, you know, and I have every confidence in the world that this is going to be a top-notch facility that at the end of the day we're all going to be proud of. As far as the racing goes, I believe it's actually in the legislation that if an applicant is awarded a license and they have a horse track, they actually, I think they've expanded the number of days in which they have to stay open to 100. Am I correct in saying that, Chip?
There are provisions that add racing days in the first few years that gaming occurs on the property. Yeah.
Okay. So you know, it's important, you know, even from the perspective of the legislature, that we keep this, you know, that we keep racing going. And you know, as I say, you know, the more options I think that you give people, the more attractive it becomes to people to visit there. And when you take into consideration the fact that the city of Revere is very closely tied to the success of that project in terms of revenues, we want to see that project be as successful as it possibly can. So I think it's just a great addition to the overall project.
Yeah. And lending to the success, hopefully, of the project in terms of the application is the Green Initiative. And reading through some of the criteria that the Gambling Commission is going to go through in awarding the application, environment is one of the major criteria. So you want to talk about the Green Initiative and what you guys are doing in that field?
Sure. Well, we've talked about setting the standard for gaming development in Massachusetts in a number of ways, right? We have the best location, the best site, 161 acres, on a major highway, off of public transportation. We believe we have the ability to enhance the local tourism economy more than any other proposal. And there are all those criteria and things that the Gaming Commission will look at when it makes a decision. And Ed, as you point out, one of them is your commitment to the environment and the environment in which you do business and where your facility is located. And as we looked at this and we looked around the country, we said, why don't we commit to being the greenest casino development in the United States? And as we looked at it, we said, well, you know, if we're going to be the greenest casino development in the United States, we could be the greenest casino development in the world. And it's a little counterintuitive because casino operations use a lot of energy, right? But there are ways to do it as efficiently as possible. And so we looked at two things. We looked at, okay, there's this checklist that all architects and all developers look at, which is LEED, right? The LEED standard. And how do you get to LEED Gold? How do you get to LEED Platinum? And only one casino in the United States has ever achieved LEED Gold. We will be the second casino to development to do that. If we earn a license, it's part of our agreements, right? And we feel we can do that. We said, well, what can we do to go above and beyond that? What can we do that's not just a checklist on your heating controls and your power generation on site? And it's a massive commitment. We will have one of the largest private solar arrays in the Northeast to create as much solar energy on site as possible. We will have one of the largest rainwater harvesting and collection and reuse facilities in all of Massachusetts. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of gallons collected from the roofs of the facility to be reused in fountains and in laboratories and in ways that preserve water. In addition, we've got some fun things too, like growing all the vegetables in a hydroponic, state-of-the-art hydroponic 5,600 square foot rooftop greenhouse that will be on the second floor of the facility. We've got a commitment to anaerobic digestion so that all of the food waste at the facility, we're designing so that all of the food waste can be separated and all of the organic waste can be separated, and we've got a contract with a Massachusetts-based anaerobic digestion facility, so we'll be like an anchor tenant. We'll be providing food waste for them so that they can create power with it. And there are others that are like that, but it's beyond hitting that LEED checklist and trying to figure out what can we do to the property. We are taking over 10 acres of pavement, of impervious surface, and making it pervious surface. We're adding open space. We'll have 40 acres of open space, green, gardens, ecological park for public use. Other people don't even have 40 acres that they're proposing for their whole site. So it's really something that we took very seriously, that the commission is going to take seriously, and that in the future it's going to be a differentiator for consumers as well. People more and more are making choices, consumer choices, based on environmental considerations.
Dan, any thoughts on the Green Initiative?
The only thing that I'll add is a while back, and you may remember this, we had Chairman Crosby speak to the Chamber of Commerce, and he had mentioned that in their due diligence process, as they're reviewing applications from people bidding on one of these 3 casino licenses, he went down through a list of criteria, and I think the last one he referred to at that time as the wow factor.
The wow factor,
and so
yes, I remember it.
That's kind of how I am looking at this particular part of the proposal, where they're doing so many things that really has never been done in many cases by a casino operator. So, really, I feel as though, at the end of the day, they have covered virtually anything that people could have concerns about and address them in their proposal and in their plans to develop. So, again, it's going to come down to the voters on November 5th. And, as I say to people, I try to point out all of these things that we're talking about. In this case with CHIP, we're talking about jobs and the development itself, and we've talked about what it means financially to the city, and you'll be talking about transportation and public safety. But, all of these things, I think once they're laid out, to me anyway, it would be hard to argue that this is not going to be anything but a terrific asset to our community. And but again, the legislation calls for a vote on the in our case it'll be on November 5th, and I'm very hopeful that our residents will support it.
I would agree. Yeah. If I could, going back to, and we saw a number of the illustrations in terms of the plans and the design for it. Will all of what we see be there in phase 1, if you will? Because I know there was discussion about phased approach, and just to kind of clear up any misinformation that exists out there, what is the phased approach?
So the The best way to look at this, Ed, I think, is to point out to people that, and especially people around here who have been to Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun, neither of them opened the way they are today, right? You know, these projects and these facilities have a progressive life sometimes, right? And you open one phase and you're scrubbing another and opening another and then opening another, and it's a constant process. There was some discussion that we would that we might wait and open everything in one phase. What we're proposing to build, hotel, parking structure, all the new construction, renovation of the grandstand and clubhouse, the complete redesign of the landscape, and all the road and infrastructure improvements that we're undertaking. We're starting those all at once. We'd start everything at the same time. The advantage we have is that existing grandstand building, that big old grandstand they built in 1935 that fits 30,000 people. We can have that done in 14 months. Okay, so the full construction cycle for our project is 24 to 26 months. But at 14 months, if we've got restaurants and gaming space and racing facility ready to open and ready to go, our question to people was, why would we wait? If we can hire 1,200 people and start the revenue flowing to the communities and start putting people to work, why would we wait? And it was really not our decision, though. It was up to it was up to Mayor Rizzo and Mayor Menino. It was up to our host communities, and it's up to the Gaming Commission as well. So we are proposing that we do open in a first phase, and that we have some activity occurring on the property while we're finishing some of the ground-up construction. So after 14 months, if we're fortunate enough to earn a license in April of next year and start construction in July of next year, in September of 2015, we could open in a first phase while we take another year to complete everything else, and then be open at full operation in September of 2016. And if that's the way that the Gaming Commission and our host communities would like us to proceed, then we'd like to do it that way, yeah.
So, you know, the opening of the doors was one of my questions, and of course tied with that, if it is September 15th, there's a lot of other work going on besides the construction on Suffolk Downs proper, the road work and things of that nature. So will all of those things be done by that point in time as well?
So again, we are shooting to get it all done at the same time. We want to start it all at once. The construction cycle for the road work is the same as the construction cycle, 24 to 26 months for the full build of the facility. We've got to widen Route 1A. The main point of our proposal is a flyover, right? That's one of the big a flyover at Boardman Street on 1A. We've got to widen 1A first in order to do that. So the worst thing that we could do is open a facility that nobody could get to, right? So I think sometimes people say, oh, you got to fix the roads, and we say, yeah, we get it. We know, because you don't want to create a bad experience for your visitors. So the plan is that everything starts simultaneously, and that we're finishing on road improvements and local improvements on the roadways as we're opening a first phase and getting ready to open a second phase. Our agreements with Revere and Boston have some specific timelines, but we can't open the full build until the road work is done.
There you go. Okay. Dan, any closing comments, remarks?
No, just again, my thanks to you and Revere TV. This is really informative and educational. Obviously, we want our voters to be as educated on this host community agreement as they possibly can, and of the benefits that this development will offer to the city of Revere. So, my thanks.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I know, Chip, I think we're going to be talking to you in the next session as well.
Sure.
So, Dan, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll move on to the next session. In the next session, we're going to talk about transportation. So, stay tuned.